Hi all, Natalie Lewis here again for Malt 3475. I just want to show you today a tutorial for how to use background images for websites. The difference between using an actual image that has, a top, bottom, left, and right, no type of repeating pattern, just an image, versus using a seamless, repeatable pattern for a background image, which can save file size and space. So just to show you, say for example, if I wanted to use a background image, I'm talking about for the body element of my web page. So say for example, all the back over here. If I want to use an image with a set dimension, say for example, if I take this one here, this is an image that you have rights to. It's one that's a free download, I believe royalty free, that you can use. That there are lots of different images you can find online. If you look for free background images, they have a bunch. So here, if I were to look at the dimensions, 1920 by 1200 pixels, it's bigger than this, so 3 times larger. I can download this image to my computer, and so I've done that. And in Photoshop, you'll see here, this is the image. So I can use this picture as a background to, any element that I want on my web page. But say right now, speaking specifically for the body element, that's the overall browser background that goes from, the top left corner to the bottom right corner that you see in a web page. So now this picture, if I look at it, and if I look at the actual pixel size, I just went to view, actual pixels here, it's a pretty big image. And if I were to look at the file size, it's pretty hefty. So if I wanted to use this image to fill up the entire browser window, and if I were to save this and use this on the web, you'll see that it's 6.59 megabytes, which would take a long time to download. And so it would also take stall the viewing of your website the way you want it to be displayed. And at a certain point, let me just go back to Chrome here. At a certain point, there's going to be an edge to the picture. So you're going to see, either the right edge or the bottom edge, depending on what resolution the viewer is seeing your website at. And if not, then if you do have a tiling in the background, you're going to start to see the same image repeat itself. And I'll show you what I mean. So here, if I go over to, I'll go over to my coffee time layout. Right now, I have that 1 pixel image in the background, but I'm going to change that. So I'm talking about the body. So all this blue section over here on the outside. This can apply, background images can apply to different elements, but for now I'm just showing you the body tag. So meaning this tag here, the body tag, which is the overall browser background. So I'm going to change this background to the one that I just downloaded, which is the one with the swirl. So I'm just going to comment this out since I've already typed it in. Comment out this one. So now I'm left with that. And let's go back up here. I'm going to add in the other one. Let's see what happened here. Oh, I'm missing the closing. Okay, there we go. So here, this is the background image that I've just placed, just as an example. So if I preview in Safari, yes, or preview in the browser, you'll see that, ta-da, we have our background image. And the thing is that since it's a really big image, it seems like it could fit to show the whole thing. I don't have a repeat on it, so as you'll see that at a certain point, I'm going to end up seeing the edge of that image here on the right-hand side, and it looks like, oh, it might be okay on the right, but if somebody's viewing this site at a really high resolution, so which may look something like this, you're going to see that edge. It's going to be like, uh-oh, there's no more of this one photograph to take up the rest of the page to show it properly. So the other thing, if you want to avoid that, is if, say you repeat it. So let me just repeat it or tile it. So right now I have background repeat, no repeat on. If I were to take that off, and by default it then tiles, let's refresh. So then you'll see, okay, yes, we do have an image filling up the space. However, you see where the other image starts to begin at the right and at the bottom because it tiles and it's not seamless. So a way to avoid this is number one, you don't want to use huge images to take up the background. You can see something like this typically, but you don't want to necessarily use huge images to take up the background. You can, as long as you know it's you reduce the file size a little bit, maybe reduce the quality of the image just to compensate for the size of the image. But what I'm going to show you now are background patterns, or what we can call seamless web backgrounds or background patterns. So there are many different resources on the web for creating seamless web patterns, or ones which you can download for free. I will place on Blackboard many different links to sites that have background patterns. Say, for example, this one here, online background generators. There's some that can generate patterns and textures for you that you can create yourself or just download. And so there are many, 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 many resources for this. I'm going to show you one here, subtle patterns, I like. So these ones here, there are some subtle patterns. You see, you can preview it to see what it will look like. Preview, it shows me here, oh, what's that going to look like? And any one of these you can download for free. So at the bottom here, at least of this site, they have, you know, some tags of, you know, do you want to see the dark ones? Do you want to see ones that look like paper, ones with texture? So it'll preview all of these here for you. So I've downloaded one that's, oh yeah, one more thing to show you about this is if you look at the image size, okay, you see that's really big, the pixel information really, really big, right? And then the photo is actually big. But if I were to look at one that I downloaded from that site, Subtle Patterns, this is the little, the image that is downloaded. And what happens is that I can use this one seamless image because it is such that the top, bottom, right, and left will repeat and everything will connect so it doesn't look like there's any break in the picture. So if I look at this image size, here you see 16 by 16 pixels, 768 bytes, super small. So if I were to go to Dreamweaver here and change this background to that small pattern which I just downloaded, the tiny one, so I have it here, I'm just going to uncomment this. Typically I could, you know, type it all out or use the right hand side CSS styles to do it. I just have it already done, so I'm going to, I'll just delete this one, the old background with the swirl that I just put, and have that. So as you can see now, what happens is that that one tiny little square that was 16, I believe, by 16 pixels now repeats as a seamless background for the body. So if I were to have a really high screen resolution where you can see more of the screen, there's no point where it stops or cuts off or starts to tile in a jagged way where you'll start to see the picture repeat itself. With this, you can also choose if you want it to repeat in one direction or the other, or not at all. So, meaning, if I go back to Dreamweaver, right now I have, I don't have it saying no repeat. What it really is if I were to say background repeat, no repeat, you'll see that it's just one tiny little square. Put this down here. Background repeat. Oops, no caps. It's okay, but I prefer lowercase. Background repeat. No repeat. So what it is just one tiny little square. So if I preview that in Safari, in browser, you'll see all that is one tiny little square. I could also repeat in, say, just the Y direction or the X direction. Back up here, background repeat. Repeat in the X direction. That'll give me the pattern just going across the top of my page. There we go. So it just goes across the top of my page. Just one line across the top. If I repeat in Y, it will be one line going vertically along the left-hand side. So I'll show you that as well. Up here, background, repeat, repeat, Y instead of X. Now it does the opposite. It does it in the vertical sense. So there it is. If I don't have anything indicating repeat, by default it will repeat all the way across the page and tile seamlessly across my entire background for my body. So let me just remove this to what it was before, and you'll see it. Here we go. Going seamlessly across the entire background. Now this is for the body. I could have also used this background pattern for any element. So I can use it as the background image of my main section. I can use it as the background image for heading 1 if I wanted to. So you can really use these patterns, these seamless patterns, for any element where you can have a background image as a CSS style for it. So if I were to go back to Chrome, or my browser here, and show you, so this is one where you can download images. There are many others. So this one here allows you to preview. Most of them allow you to give you a preview if you want something in a color family. Say if you want something that's brown. Oops, that is back to browns. Those are the browns. So if I wanted something that is in the blue family, it will show me all the patterns that exist on the site that are downloadable in that color. So I can preview to see what it looks like. Working kind of slowly. There we go. And you can download them as well, and they're all free. One thing, you don't want to go too crazy with patterns. You don't want anything that makes your site look too overdone or too tacky, or using patterns upon patterns for every single element, just because you can do it. Do it, in such a way that it makes it, nice and clean, enhances the design rather than clutters it. Because the last thing you want is to have something that's way too cluttered and uncalled for. So this also has ones where you can go by the shape that you might want. If you want something that's all stripes, has these ones here, and you can always preview and see what they look like before you use it on your page. So these are some aspects for background patterns, and just to remember that when you use a background pattern that is seamless, it will save on file size and download time as well. So here are just some resources, just in terms of if you Google them. I will post many resources for you in terms of sites where you can find them. But if you're just thinking, you want to look for yourself, just search for seamless backgrounds or seamless patterns, seamless web background patterns, and there are many sites that have free resources from which they can be downloaded. One other point that I want to make regarding if you're using an image that is not seamless in your background, you can just change this, go back a second, go back to open. Okay, so what you can do is, if you want to avoid having that hard edge on the side, is you can do it such that you mask the edges of your image so that they end up transparent and that they'll blend into the background, say the white or blue or whatever color that you have, instead of having that sharp edge that shows that it's the end of that picture. So I'll just show you what I mean. Layers. Back to the history. I'll go back to the original picture. Okay, so here, if this is my picture, and if I want to then mask out the edges, this is one little cheat that you can do, I guess. Here, can we just make this a layer by double clicking? I want a layer underneath it of, say, well, there doesn't actually have to be any layer underneath it because it's just going to be transparent. So if I'm working on this, I can mask, create a layer mask, and then use my gradient tool to then blend out a part of it. And you see here, I see that grid behind it. That means it's going to be transparent, so it will blend to whatever color I want it to be, or if I had it like a solid white, then I make sure that the background color for that element is white. Make sure that it's black and white when you're making a mask or trying to mask out something. I'm going to discard this mask and apply it, and then I'm going to mask it again and get rid of the right hand side, so kind of like a two-step process. There we go. So I have a little bit of blended out. I'll leave that. So this will be transparent. So if I were to resave this image here, oh, it's really big. I should have saved it smaller. But okay. So if it's I'm going to save it as a PNG so that the transparency shows. And I'll place it in the appropriate folder. Images. I'll just call this 2. So that's saving. And I would typically, before saving this, make this a little bit smaller because it's a really big picture. Actually, sorry, it's 1.1 megabytes as a PNG. So, almost done. I'm going to go back to Dreamweaver here. So now, for my body, if I were to change that background image to, I'll just delete all this, start over. So background image. Let's finish saving. There we go. The second one, 2, with the transparency. So open, here it is, semicolon. So it shows. And at a certain point, so if I were to preview in browser, so it's not perfect, but you'll see that, oh, it didn't say the transparency. Okay, so at a certain point, if I have, oh, sorry, no, actually what I mean is, if I were to not have it repeat, it should just blend out to the white. So here, I'm going to put background repeat, no repeat, so that it doesn't tile. No repeat, semicolon. So now if I were to preview this, there it is. It doesn't repeat, but you see that it kind of blends out instead of have this like sharp edge to say like, oh, that's the end of my picture on the left, and that's the end of my picture on the right. It kind of blends a little bit better, so that it's kind of blending into the white color that's below it. So those are some tricks that you can use to create your background images.